I'm back. I didn't vanish into like European miasma, and I survived, and I went to France and drank wine and all those good things. And Russ is back, and he went to France, and he didn't get subverted and come back all Frenchified. And
qu'est-ce que c'est?
Although he does keep saying oui a lot,
oui.
But I'm not sure he did that. So I know we did a show about this before, but we are smarter now, or maybe not. Russ is probably smarter now. But we're going to talk a little more about phishing and scams, and talk about how we're just about one click away from getting phished all the time. So today we're going to talk more about social engineering and phishing attacks, since people keep getting phished, so you must not have got it the first time. So stick around.
This is a Security Weekly production.
Welcome to Secure Digital Life. If your users are going to keep putting risky stuff on your machine, you're screwed. So Tom can help us understand the complexity of blockchain.
I was reading through the show notes, man. Oof.
In binary, it would be 001. Who cares? But it's probably not significant anyway. Like you're looking out through the HAL dot, you know, like,
oh,
hey Dave.
It's like Sims, but with, you know,
it would be like Sims
instead of AI. It's only.
Accredited by Microsoft, Cisco, NetApp, IDLE, Oracle, and EC Council, QuickStart delivers high-impact, low-cost IT training through its cognitive learning platform in multiple domains. With QuickStart, you get an ever-growing catalog of courses, self-paced courses offered through a monthly subscription, virtual classrooms offered through an annual subscription, peer-to-peer learning, mentoring, official courses, certified instructors, hands-on labs, and more. For more information, visit www.quickstart.com. Use coupon code PAUL20 to get 20% off on all cybersecurity courses. QuickStart, creating world-class technologists. We just released our 2018 listener survey, so if you want to keep us on the air, please go to securityweekly.com/survey to help us continue to provide you with the quality content that doesn't break the build. Mike Thompson joins us tomorrow at 3 p.m. EST, that's 1500 for all the rest of you, to show you how the threat intelligence space is transforming and what techniques security professionals can apply to stay a step ahead of threat actors by mapping their infrastructure. Register, though. You have to register now at securityweekly.com/domain tools. And you're going to like this one. Come to our pool cabana. I always wanted a pool cabana.
Me too.
Come to our pool cabana at Black Hat. And we not only have one at Black Hat, we have one at DEF CON. To pick up a free copy of Cyber Hero Adventures. So you can come to our pool cabana at either Black Hat or DEF CON or both and get a free copy of Cyber Hero Adventures.
And it's signed.
And it's signed. Here you'll be able to get that comic book signed by Gary Berman. And we're going to talk about then something else. They didn't put a space in there, so I was like, we're going to talk about the Revenge of the Warhorse. But
Revenge of the no.
But yeah, if you're going to be at Black Hat and DEF CON, we're going to be there, so you should definitely come by, get interviewed, hang out, whatever you want to do. And it's a pool cabana in Vegas.
Hell
so
yeah.
And
a bungalow.
There's a bungalow too, and I don't actually know what happens in a bungalow, but I'm going to find out. So yeah, watch out. All right.
Especially in Vegas.
Yeah, especially in Vegas. And what happens in Vegas doesn't necessarily stay in Vegas. It just...
It follows you back.
You say that, but yeah, then you're at the doctor's and there's all that. So. But yeah, the doctor's like, that's not true.
There's not enough penicillin in the world to cure this.
Yeah, I had to take Doxy.
Why?
I got bit by a tick.
Where?
On my arm.
No, where?
I don't know where the tick,
Island?
it was on me, yeah. I don't know. The tick was on me, and this guy, I saw it, and I was like, what the hell is that?
Were you tested for Lyme's?
No. So I'm probably going to die. But if I come back next week and I'm covered in spots or circles or whatever you get from that, it'll be bad. But you'll, yeah, this is the most awful creature. Yeah, it's like I have ticks all over me, and I'm willing to share. All right, so we're going to talk about phishing again today, and I know we talked about this before in the past, but phishing is still the most common kind of attack. I mean, the thing I get the most of, that I see the most, and the thing I get called about the most is phishing attacks. And even when people say they didn't get phished, half the time the truth is they did. I was talking to somebody this morning, and he was taking calls, and the person was saying, oh, no way we got phished, no way we got phished. It's some kind of elaborate hacking scam and whatever. But it was a phishing attack. I mean, because, look, you can come up with these elaborate, sophisticated hacks, but you could also just use a simple tool and you could break in. So we want to talk a little bit more about that and some of our strategies we do with training. I just reviewed a training course for somebody and I wasn't that impressed, but you know, that's okay. I thought they spent way too much time on categories and trying to categorize things
like
into
spear
boxes.
phishing.
Well, yeah, they spent an
phishing,
awful lot of time talking about whaling and spear phishing, and I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. It's all the same thing.
Attack, yeah.
The two backgrounds on this that I always give people are the Nigerian prince and the Spanish lottery.
I love the Nigerian prince.
The Nigerian prince scam, the original Nigerian prince, long before the internet, this was going. I mean, there were probably Romans who got taken by the Nigerian prince. You know, they walked out of the Colosseum, and there was a guy standing there going, "Oh, my friend." But the old Nigerian prince scam, and I actually saw one once outside of JFK. The guy said he didn't say he was a Nigerian prince. He said he was a prince of something. And the way this old scam works at the Port Authority or wherever is the guy is standing there and he goes, "Oh, sir, could you help me?" And they tell you that they have a whole bunch of money and it's in a duffel bag or a suitcase or whatever, and that customs has seized it, and because they have to pay import duties on it. And sometimes it's in a locker. That's the other one, is that it's in a locker. And there's a movie called Get Shorty where the whole movie sort of revolves around this suitcase in a locker and everybody's trying to get to it. But they tell you that they need you to help them out, and they need you to give them some money to go in and bribe the right people or pay the tax or whatever. And if you foolishly do, then they obviously have this very quasi-legal thing going where they can say, "Oh, you can't go with me." You know, they can't see that I'm being assisted by somebody that's local. So you give them the $500, $5,000, $250 or whatever it is, and they go in and you never see them again. And they vanish into the Port Authority, and you spend the rest of the day trying to find them and listening to the NYPD laugh at you because you say, "Yeah, I gave this guy $500 to go in and get his money out of the Port Authority," and they're going, "The Brooklyn Bridge is for sale. Let me make you write your receipt."
But nowadays, do people really carry that much cash on them?
No, but they would get you to go to an ATM machine. I mean, they say, "How much money could you?" This is the same exact way that the phone scams, the Nigerian 419 scams work. They say, "How much money could you raise?" Right. You know, and then of course the money you can get just happens to be, you know, and if they're really good scam artists, what they do is you say I could get 5,000. They go, "Oh, that's way more than I need." You know, I 3,000 will be plenty, and so you go and get $3,000, and or you give them traveler's checks or whatever you have. Not to mention it's at an airport and a bus station, so people tended, at least in the past, to have cash with them. And they ran this scam in Europe, because in Europe, they didn't take credit cards anywhere. And every tourist that was showing up in Europe at Heathrow or at Charles de Gaulle or wherever, always had a lot of money. Because I remember going to Europe back in the 80s and having, you know, and thinking, wow, I have a lot of money because I got to pay for all my hotels and I got to pay for all my food and everything with cash. And it was a little bit scary. So that's a really old scam. That's one of the main elements of phishing attacks that we see today in some regards that we're going to talk about. And the Spanish lottery is another really ancient scam. And again, I have a funny feeling that there were Romans and Mesopotamians and you know, and people way back when sailing up the coast of Israel, you know, you know, before Roman times even, and there was some guy out there saying, "Hey, buddy, you know what? You won the Jerusalem lottery yesterday, and you just put into port, and I bet all those shekels you've got in that basket would be enough to pay the excise taxes." But this one used to be done through the U.S. mail. So way back when, they would actually send out stamped envelopes that, you know, had all these official seals on them. I used to have one. I probably still got it somewhere. Had all these seals and stamps on it, and it said, this, you know, Spanish government and the property of the Spanish government, and you know, authorized users only. And then, you know, you get this fancy letter inside that's, you know, signed and sealed, and it says, you know, you've won $100,000 in the Spanish lottery. Please call this number and they'll make arrangements for you to receive the winnings. And, you know, and everybody I ever knew got scammed by this. My first question was, did you enter the Spanish lottery? Did you buy a ticket in the Spanish lottery? And of course today they've modified that. They go, "Oh, we drew your email address out of a list."
Yeah.
you know, Bill Gates picked 5 emails and you're going to receive a free, you know, supercomputer that Bill Gates is going to build for you.
I mean, it's almost borderline, too. Remember the Publishers Clearinghouse stuff that used to come in? You get an envelope in the mail, snail mail saying, hey, you know, you've been entered for the final drawing of $2 million or $100,000, whatever it was. You just need to buy more magazines or something like that.
Are you saying that's a scam?
I'm not saying anything.
Oh,
I'm just saying
I mean, man, my life has been wasted.
I'm saying it sounds a lot like something like that.
No, it's exactly. I mean, it's legal, and so Publishers Clearinghouse is a completely legal entity, and they're not scamming you. They're just taking advantage of you, and they do give money away, but they're basically trying to get you to sign up for magazines and get your information so they can market to you. And that's the old school of marketing, when they didn't need to buy all that stuff from Facebook. Right. Today, they just call Facebook and go, Facebook, send us another 100,000 people to take advantage of. No problem. We got an election coming up. But all these things have gone on forever. Today, we see the IRS scam is one I get a lot. I get phone calls saying that, you know, I'm going to be arrested because my taxes haven't been paid, and blah, blah, blah. And I find that to be fairly annoying. Sorry, my timer shut off. But all these things go on. The mystery bail bond was one that I've seen before, where they call you and tell you that that a bail bond was issued on your name and that you're going to be arrested. And it must be a mistake, but they're going to need to straighten that out. And can you give them some information? And then they often do ask for money. And of course, a week ago, we could spend show after show after show talking about.
And now they're calling too. They're they're using automated systems to call you, and I just got one a couple weeks ago where they told me that there's an outstanding warrant for my arrest.
Oh yeah,
I know for a fact that's not true, but you know, it's just
I don't know.
Yeah, and we just got one in our email this morning at the university, and you know, they're becoming increasingly more adept at putting personally identifiable information into those emails to legitimize them, when in fact they're illegitimate, and you don't want to click here.
And that's what they call spear phishing.
Yeah, exactly.
When they actually have targeted information about you. I mean, I almost got one last year because it came and it had my daughter's name on it, had my name of my daughter's school on it. I don't know where they got the information, but it actually said your daughter's school needs the following information for her to be able to finish the semester. You know, click here to go to our site, and you know, and I of course I was about to click on it, and then I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And I went and I looked at it in another context.
And then you look at the link, and the link is from, and I'm quoting here, no reply at QT607KP0 at jobgangkang.com.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so that's not from Microsoft, you know.
Yeah, and all these things are really social engineering. I mean, they're not elaborate, sophisticated zero-day hacks. They're very basic human nature things. And the idea behind all of it, and you can categorize it all you want. You can call it spear phishing, you can call it whatever you want. But at the end of the day, it's really about casting your net into a big pool of people, even if it's spear phishing, and seeing who bites. And they do this constantly because volume is no big deal with the internet. It doesn't cost you a stamp to send out 1 million emails. And in fact, one of the real common ways to do this, you can download for free a server that will let you just literally generate emails. You can put in a domain, or you can let it generate random domains, and it just literally starts with a@a.com, a@aa.com, and and it can generate 100 million emails an hour, and just flood the world with bounced emails.
And for the telephone side of things, bad actors are using Skype. And because in Skype you can war dial, and you can do thousands at a time. Now, cell phone providers like Verizon and T-Mobile are getting better at blocking certain types of numbers that identify Skype calls. This was just in Gizmodo or Lifehacker last week, and they're looking at blocking star calls. So, but then there's a whole other litany of problems.
We don't even answer any call at our house that does not have an ID on it. I mean, I don't care if the number's local. We do not answer calls. They all go straight to voicemail. And I mean, I don't care what it says, because I get them all the time.
Me too.
I got one the other day that said Warren PD. And I was like, really? And somebody just put that in as their ID, and it looks, people go, oh wow, it's a police department calling me, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not answering these calls. The only problem I have is sometimes like state police call me and they don't have names on there, but I know the numbers, so I know what that number looks like. But I mean, if you got a call from some other entity like this, so hey, folks out there, you might want to put some kind of identifiers on your call ups. I do know if they officially call you. So if the police officially call you, it would normally have some kind of official. But even then, it's easy enough to fake that. And, you know, I saw this categorization in this training class, and I didn't like it because I felt like it's not about categorizing things and saying there's certain criteria that have to be met for you to fall for this, because they constantly change it. They embed all kinds of criteria, and I'm like, you know, don't think that you say, oh, I'm not subject to spear phishing attacks, or one of the things they made a big point about was whaling. Yeah. And whaling is a term that's used to describe targets at high-level figures. And I'm like, I'm sorry, don't start saying that, because then people immediately say, well, I'm not a big shot. I'm not the director of the FBI. I'm not going to be a whaling target. So I can ignore, you know, I just click, and you're going to have all that kind of stuff. Now, being a hypocrite, which I'm very good at, I immediately set up some terms of my own. It's like that FEMA document I had.
Man, I hate categories, but let me make my own.
Categories suck, and you should know. I always remember I went to this training session, and one of the first things they taught you in this FEMA training session was never use acronyms. It was like right there on the first page, and I was like, your name is an acronym. I was like, right there at the top of the page, it says FEMA. That's an acronym. And I was like, well, you can use FEMA acronyms. And I'm like, why? I want to make up some acronyms, too. Like the no acronym stuff. It's like NAS, no acronym stuff. But I broke this just into two things: direct attacks and indirect attacks. And the only reason I brought this up was because I wanted to try to give you a strategy for thinking about it. And that was where the Warhorse thing came from too. But to me, direct attacks are just social engineering. They're straight up. So this is somebody actually coming right at you. They're not just blanketing the world. They're literally trying to get you to take an action right away, based on something that they know about you. So they call you, they do these kind of things. And indirect attacks are more like social engineering, phishing type attacks, where they're harder to spot because they're more subtle than these direct. And a direct attack is where you really have to be a skeptic. Is the only way to me to avoid that. And I made some steps, again, being a hypocrite. And you've heard these things before, but because people keep falling for them, I keep saying them. The number one to me is just too good to be true. Yep. Every time I've ever fallen for anything that got me in trouble, it was because it was something that was too good to be true. Yeah. And you know, it's easy to fall for these. Somebody says, "Hey, would you like to make a lot of money?" And you say, "I would really like to make a lot of money." Would you like to meet a beautiful person
Russian
of whatever your preference might be? And you say, I really would like to do that. And I mean, and I know both men and women of all orientations get endless contacts on Facebook, social media, from people with pictures of them, very pretty, very voluptuous kind of people, saying, would you like to meet up? And I'm sure some may be legitimate, because it is me. And I mean, I would expect to get at least a portion of the population would be wanting to meet me. But you know, but some of them are probably scams too.
Yeah.
Not many. I mean, you know, I keep trying, but the other one is, does something appear to be exactly what I want? I got robbed once in Jamaica, and the way I got robbed was because I was wanting to rent a motorcycle. There was a whole pile of people renting motorcycles, and they all had signs saying $15 or whatever for the motorcycle. And there was this one guy with one that said $5. Mm-hmm. And I was like, dude, you're my guy. And he was like, very good, come this way. And we walked back behind the building, and I got robbed. Oh. And, you know, and I was like, God, I would never have done that in New York. If somebody came out of an alley with a sign, I would have been like, yeah, bite me. You know, but instead I was a stupid tourist, and I got robbed.
To save $10. Hey,
to save $10, I lost a lot more. But I mean, it does something appear to be exactly what you want or you're expecting at the time, and then that's some skepticism stuff. Is something about to solve an unpleasant problem for me just at the right moment? Are you about to get arrested for tax evasion? I base this one on one of my things I always like to do. I always take my daughter around to these places, and we were watching Luggage Thieves in Italy once. And the way the luggage thieves operated was, there's a guy standing outside the train station, and when you come out and you've got all these bags and things, and it's hot and you're sweaty and tired already, they say, "Oh, could I help you with your luggage?" You know. And you know, and the people, "Oh yeah, take my luggage," and the guy goes, "Thank you," and they take the luggage and run. You know, and you're going, wait, and which is why I always fill your luggage with really dirty, stinky clothes. And I used to do that for customs too. You know, customs used to poke through your stuff, like, enjoy. It's really fun. I wore the same underwear for 6 days in Vietnam. You're gonna enjoy this a lot. Oh. But in all, and I also put in all cases see one above. So is something too good to be true? Every one of these boils down to is something too good to be true. So then I started putting it down into how do you avoid an indirect scam? And ultimately it all boils down to one word: being a skeptic. I mean, you have to stop and be a skeptic. If you ever start doing, and this is true of everything in life, if you ever start doing things spontaneously, and it sucks that it has to be that way, but you know, every one of these things is where you get in trouble, and you didn't think, and you were doing something else, and you just click. And clickbait's a really good example of that. I mean, we all fall for clickbait all the time. I don't care what the clickbait is. Some clickbait will get you, and it doesn't have to be a scam. It may just want you to come to a site, and you see some ad that appeals to you. You see some shocking thing, and you say, "Oh my God, I got to read that up." The second thing under that category is, what is the source of this information? Is it a phone call? Why on earth would the IRS be calling you to let you know you're about to be arrested? I mean, I'm sorry, but if they're coming to arrest you, they're not going to call you and warn you about it so that you can load the shotguns. They're going to come and break the door down. Right. When you got that email, where did it come from? And this is sketchy, because you will get emails from people you know. I mean, sometimes people's accounts are compromised. Sometimes they just guess an email address. I got an email once from my wife, and it had her actual address on it, and it said, and I don't know if they were in some account she had or they had a mailing list from her. It's one thing about Microsoft is the API shares. If you can get into the API, you can actually extract all this information from Microsoft. So if you have an Outlook address book and somebody compromises something else, they can use Visual Basic, they can use Visual C# or whatever to extract all that information, just crossing your platform, and they have it all. Google, if somebody gets your Google login, they're going to have your whole address book. They're going to have all this information, and you don't know who on your list of people that you do know is going to get compromised. So do you know them? Well, maybe, and maybe that's not even good. Is it a real person? Yep. If you get an email from your company, you may want to think, is that really? Now, me, I don't know any, but Russ knows everybody at the university. I know almost no one. But if I get an email from somebody at the university and I'd never heard of them, I might at least stop and go, is that a real person? And they, especially if it has some of these other criteria, like, is this too good to be true? Is it clickbait? I almost got popped with a clickbait one not too long ago. That was it actually was issued by the university. It came on a university email.
We've had that many times too.
And it said the university board has just passed a new protocol that requires all faculty members to adhere to this set of standards. And I wasn't that upset about it because I'm so boring, but I was thinking this is going to be the firestorm to end all firestorm. And they come in and tell faculty members they all have to get a haircut. I'm like, you can't wear flip-flops to class. Like, oh yeah, okay, wait, I want to see how this is gonna shape up. Check the links. Well, one of the first things I always tell people is check the links that you're going to. If you're going to click a link, check. And you can do that with a mouse over. Yep. We demoed that on another show. Mouse over those links and just make that your habit. When you click any link at all, even if all these other things are not true, and then you say, oh, it's from my dad, check that link. I mean, if my dad sends me a link, it takes 2 seconds to mouse over it and go, whoa, why would my dad be sending me links to something in Russia, or whatever? And maybe it's legit. And if you're daring and you want to explore these things, there's a way to do it. And what I recommend is what I do, which is I have a VM, so I have a VirtualBox machine. So VirtualBox is free, and I put the links in the show notes. So if you want to check that out, you can download VirtualBox from Oracle, put it on your machine. It's not even that big, and put an image in it. And I use Linux, Mint Linux. It's small. Peppermint's even smaller, and there's a couple of other really small distros. Put one in there. It's got a GUI, and you can open a browser. And if you want to go to the link, just go to it. You can also do digs. You can do whois's and all these kind of things on those links and see if it makes any sense at all. Now, I will tell you, they're very good at disguising and obfuscating where these IP addresses are. So don't get too wrapped up in the like mapping IPs, because you see an IP and it says, oh, that's in China. That doesn't necessarily mean it's in China. It may be somebody using a browser that's in China, but they're actually in California. So there's a whole thing with that. But if you set up a system like that, you really have the opportunity to do some exploratory work. If it's compromised, don't give them any information. I mean, I never ever give any information out. But if you see a page pop up that says Bank of America on it, at least you can see what's there. but don't use it. But even if it's a virus or it's malware or something else, now all that's compromised is your little VM, and you can just blow it away and snapshot it back to a clean copy, and you're good to go, or delete it. I mean, if I really thought it was infected, I would literally delete it with extreme prejudice and remove it from the drive.
And many antivirus programs right now will scan your email. It's not the best solution because of antivirus, and it's signature based or definition based, whatever. So it's not forward looking. It has to be released into the wild before it's detected. But some of the stuff that's already out there, it can detect some of these things that we've seen. So also use that as well.
Right. And so I started talking about the warhorse because I always try to visualize these things when I'm thinking about them and how they work and how I would react to them. And my warhorse conundrum was that if you want a warhorse, and I don't know much about this kind of thing, but I was just thinking about it. And if you want a warhorse, the horse has got to be able to just stand there when bombs are going off or bullets are flying or people are screaming or whatever, all kind of stuff warhorses get exposed to. And if you train the horse so that all the bombs going off all around you, the horse never reacts, that is kind of okay, but it's the opposite of what you need to do in most of these cases. And you get like that because you're exposed to clickbait and all these things, just constant barrage of scams and clickbait, and you get where you just click right on through. And that's the danger of being the warhorse, which is that you ignore all the bombs, and you really need to protect your flight reflex so that you run away from the bombs instead of standing there going, I'm not afraid of a bomb.
Well, we were talking about in the other room beforehand. You become desensitized to certain things that are happening around you.
Absolutely. So. I mean we all do it, and it's really a problem, and you get where you just click things because you're trying to work and you want to get things done, and somebody sends you a note, and I get these things and it says I'm a student, click here because I want you to download my assignment, and it's like, oh yeah, and you're thinking about something else. That's true. But the other one, but in direct attacks, so if somebody's actually coming at you, that's where you have to be the opposite. You have to be an actual warhorse then, because now you're getting enticed. So now the bomb, you need to stand tall while the bombs go off around you, because if you react to the bombs, then that's what a direct attack is going to do to you. The spear phishing is trying to get you to ignore the threat and then just stand tall, whereas indirect attacks, you have to run away. So
run away.
Yeah, exactly, run away. That is one of my favorite movies. if you wanted to know, I think The Life of Brian is just a tiny bit better, but they're both over the needles against the other side. But the point is, of all this with a warhorse, is that you have to be properly trained, and you may not be getting the right training, but you almost have to do this training yourself. I've seen lots of training, and the training is always the same thing as like sex harassment training. We always have to go to that. And my observation on sex harassment training was that people that are doing it, they just do it anyway. They click through all the training and pass the little thing, and it doesn't seem to actually have a real impact on, maybe it does, and there's studies on that. I haven't researched it, but same thing here. I see tons of people doing phishing training, but the reality of it is, in my opinion, is that you have to do your own training. You're going to have to find a way to put yourself at a place where you can be skeptical, you can be the warhorse at the right time, and you can be the chicken warhorse at the other time running the other direction. And that's really, really tough to do, because somebody's going to push your button. Oh, yeah. You're going to get a headline right now that says, Donald Trump admits to criminal activity. And I don't care what your political view is or how you feel about Donald Trump, but if you see that headline right now, you may be going, what? And clicking, or you may be going, yay, and clicking it. But I mean, that's a clickbait classic.
Oh, absolutely.
Or pick whoever you think the most attractive person in the world is, and it says nude photos revealed, and people click those kind of things all the time. I guarantee you, if you get something like in your email that says at least 50% of your employees at Bank X are going to be laid off within days, a lot of employees are going to click that. They're going to click that and go, what?
Am I affected? Yeah.
My better one would be at least 50% of employees at Bank X will be laid off within days. Click here to see the list of names of who's going to be terminated. And I mean, people are going to be all over that.
Yep.
And so when I do training on this, and I've done it a couple times, I tell people you really have to just count to 10. I think that is probably what I tried to boil it all down to for me. The one way that I best respond to these scams is stop, count to 10, before you do anything overt, whether it's click on an email or send an email, or send nude photos of yourself to somebody you really think wants to see them, because they probably don't. Just count to 10 and think, is this too good to be true? Is this not a good idea? Is this exactly what I think should happen at this point in time? And it makes you kind of cynical. You know, I mean, I'm like super crazy cynical, so I don't have as much trouble with this as a lot of people who are like, oh boy, you know, it's like help puppies, you know, click. But I mean, you have to stop and you have to say, what am I getting ready to do? And really stop and think carefully. And in the case of direct attacks on you, where somebody is literally targeting you, you really have to look carefully, because now the person is coming at you saying something that you want to hear. Does that cable TV repairman really need to be in your server room? And they may have an awfully good patter to go with it, but is that really the case? And we try to train people in these kind of responses, but it's really tough, you know, to train employees and people. I was doing this years ago in the 80s, and I could get people every time. I would call the bank from an outside line, which made it do a double ring, so it did like a European ring. It was like ding ding, and you know, they were supposed to know. And we trained them and said, if you hear a double ring, it's not an inside line. And it just every time, you know, the first 4 people go, hey, Doug, bite me. But that 5th one goes, oh, yes, I'll give you my mother's maiden name and my login, you know. And they just did it over and over again. And it never ceases to shock me. But then I almost fall for it. And boom, I feel like, you know, you just have to find the right hook.
Yep.
And when I find that hook for you, like I had one here, I was like, click here to get your driver's license renewed online immediately. And you know, in Rhode Island, going to the DMV is never any fun. And you know, it's this ordeal. And you either get up at 5 a.m. and go stand in line for 3 hours, or you go sit in a chair for 4 hours. It's just, you pick which poison you want to drink. And if you saw that, you're like, oh, yay. And I mean, any given day, there's a bunch of people getting their driver's license renewed.
Then there's another one they mentioned in Gizmodo that's based on Black Mirror, where, you know, you were caught looking at inappropriate material online. So send us, you know, 500 in Bitcoin, and we'll delete the tapes.
Yep.
So
that's and in fact, there's been a big rumor about that. There's actually a scam now that they're just telling people they did, even though they didn't do it.
No, right?
Just,
that's what I mean.
They're just calling people on the phone and saying,
no, that's what I mean.
Yeah, or sending emails saying we have a video of you watching pornography on your webcam, and people are like, what? Oh no!
Because lots of people probably do that. So.
Yeah, it's like that old middle school gag where it's like people that are looking at porn grow hair on their palms.
No, I thought. Oh, never mind.
We won't get into that. Yeah. There's more details to that if you know. You can tune into our R-rated show tonight, and we'll explain what we're talking about. Puny code attacks. Another problem with this is that puny code means that I buy a domain that looks like a legitimate domain, like apple.com, but I buy the one with the A with the umlauts on it. And the A with the umlauts doesn't show up on your browser. So when you mouse over it, it says apple.com, and you go, oh, I guess it's okay. So again, even then, you can't trust. You have to have other mechanisms, and you have to count to 10 and say, well, this is apple.com, but why would I get this weird email saying that, you know, my Apple account's been compromised? Please, you know, click here to correct the problem. What I tell people to do on those, go directly to the site. Don't click the link. If you get something weird and you're not sure and you say, why would Apple be sending me this email? Oh, no. Again, if you count to 10, you go, I'll just type apple.com into my browser, and I'll go there directly and see if, you know, there's anything like this. And I've had a dozen of those.
Same.
Where I typed it in and went, oh, well, that's weird. You know, there's like nothing at this address. But like I say, I put some links on the show notes that you can take a look at if you want to see some stuff you could download to set up your own little virtual environment. This doesn't take a lot of disk space, so you can put it on there, and it doesn't run all the time. You can just run it when you need it, and then you can wipe it out if you do an experiment. And that's kind of what I do with a lot of these links. Is sometimes I just want to see them. I had an email recently, the one about my daughter, and it had malware attached to it, and it was on file. The one about the university board changing the procedure had an email attached to it that was a piece of malware, and I put that in my Linux Mint box. And there's two good things about that. It's one, it's Linux. So the virus that was a Microsoft Office associated thing wouldn't even run, you know, so the malware can't really do anything. And not that that's going to always protect you, but even if it had run, it was in this like contained environment. It's not going to do anything. I disconnect it from the internet, so it isn't going to do a thing. If it's a worm, it's just going to go crazy inside the virtual box, and it isn't going to be able to do anything. So now you've opened the basket with a snake in it, but you did it inside of a box, so you can go, whoa, look, a snake. and then you can just take the box and like put a flamethrower on it, and it'll be gone forever. And the snake in the box is all gone. I like snakes, but there's a lot of people don't, so I use it as an example. Don't hurt snakes; they're good. They're good. They're good people. Mostly, I think. Lastly, I will say, don't give anything up. This is probably the ultimate end of this. Is anything where you feel like you're about to give up information is probably a scam. Unless you have validated where you are. So if you think you're logging into your bank, you may not be. It's so easy to set up fake sites and put a fake, Bank X site up, and they have you log in, and then they've got your username and password. So always when they ask, because IRS is never going to ask you for personal information, the police are going to call you and ask you to give them a bunch of personal information. If the police want to talk to you, they'll come to you.
That's right.
The IRS will send you like a registered letter if they have some business with you. So anything you get in email electronically is immediately suspicious just by nature. So that you should just put that on the sum. Check the site. If it says Bank of America with a K, if it says bankofamerica.ru, that's probably not the legitimate site, and you might want to double check that. But if you've already done it, so if you have done it, you need to change all your passwords, and you need to use different passwords on every site. And I know that sounds crazy. Get a vaulting tool. Whatever vaulting tool you want. We don't have any vaulting tool sponsors, so hey, you know who you are. But get a vaulting tool and put a different password on every site, and that's a better move, because then if you do get phished, the password you gave them is not going to work when they switch from that fake CNN site to that fake Bank of America site, and when they go to your real Bank of America site, they're not going to get that. Try not to be too persistent with usernames and things like that, but that's really hard. But it's really that password thing. And if nothing else, and I'm going to say, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, I'm going to say it for the 1,000th time.
Say it again.
Yeah, preach it. Look, on any site where you can be harmed, so I don't really care that much about you going to CNN or something, but on a site where someone can actually do financial harm to you, they can extract money from your bank account, you must use a one-use, never use it anywhere else, never give it to anybody, and it needs to be something awfully good. Best is to generate a really nasty password with a vaulting tool and take that and secure it somewhere, because if your vault gets lost and you don't know that password, you may have a problem. And I know telling people to write down passwords is always dangerous, but I'm saying write it down, put it in a safety deposit box, put it in a lock box or something where it's not stuck on the side of your monitor, but put it somewhere safe. And only use it on that one site, and that is going to help you be protected from phishing. Because if you just get phished and you click on CNN and it's a fake CNN and you log in and you use the same password in your bank, that's what they're looking for. Yep. They're looking for that username, Doug.White, and they're saying, oh, the password is 777 Lucky
Strike.
Lucky Strike. And then they're going to immediately take that information and try it on every bank site they can find and hope that I have a bank account on one of those and I was foolish and I use the same password. And I think that's probably my biggest piece of advice. Count to 10. Don't use the same passwords, and be a skeptic. I mean, really. I mean, that way, when you're under fire, hopefully you'll react the way that you really should react. Russ, do you have any other?
Yeah, I think that sums it up nicely. And use those the security tools that are most appropriate for you. The email scanning and HTTPS. Make sure that HTTPS is always in the browser, and that kind of stuff. And and be vigilant about security, like we talked about last.
I know.
week.
I saw a training not too long ago that had an invalid certificate on the training. I was like, really, guys? You have an invalid certificate on your training? And they were like, oh yeah, well, I was like, seriously? But I mean, yeah, all those things. It's scary out there. Be careful. Be safe, and we're back at least until DEF CON, and we'll be doing something from DEF CON later. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.